Imagine Chicago, 1892. A phoenix risen from ashes, now a colossal engine of progress. Its skyline, a bold declaration of ambition, was crowned by an architectural marvel, the Masonic Temple. At 22 stories, it wasn't just a building. It was the tallest structure on Earth, a granite and steel beacon housing secrets, societies, and a burgeoning intellectual movement that dared to challenge conventional thought. This unprecedented construction was a prelude to the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition. Chicago, still rebuilding from the Great Fire, hosted a spectacle of innovation. Massive atmospheric electrical lighting bathed classical architecture built at impossible speed, showcasing a future where electricity seemed to hold limitless potential, influencing every facet of human understanding, even consciousness itself. Within the towering Masonic Temple, Professor L.H. Anderson established his Chicago College of Psychotherapeutics and the National Institute of Science. This was a unique intellectual hub, a place where the burgeoning fields of psychology and neurology intersected with the then prevailing theories of atmospheric ether physics, creating a fertile ground for radical new ideas about the human mind and its connection to the cosmos. The late 19th century held a very different view of consciousness, not merely a product of chemical reactions, but an electromagnetic resonance, a receiver attuned to signals from an invisible, all-pervading etheric atmosphere. This was the cutting edge of science for many, and the Masonic Temple, far from academic orthodoxy, provided a sanctuary for such non-traditional scientific publishing and research. Anderson's work, initially embraced, offered a startling new model. He mapped the human brain as an atmospheric electrical battery, suggesting it was directly connected to a central cosmic focus. This concept, far from fringe, resonated with a public and scientific community still exploring the vast, unseen forces that governed their world, believing in a universe brimming with hidden energies. This period was a brief, vibrant bloom for alternative scientific thought. Before the rigid standardization of modern corporate science took hold, institutions like Anderson's flourished. The Masonic Temple, with its blend of esoteric tradition and scientific inquiry, represented an elite hub where revolutionary theories about mind, matter, and the universe could be openly explored and disseminated. The intellectual ferment of Chicago, fueled by rapid growth and the spirit of the World's Fair, created fertile ground for figures like Anderson. It was a time when the boundaries of science, philosophy, and spirituality were far more fluid, allowing for theories that would later be dismissed as pseudoscience to be seriously considered, even celebrated in prominent institutions. Anderson's initial prominence within this landscape was undeniable. His integration of atmospheric ether physics with human neurology and mind science wasn't an isolated anomaly, but part of a larger, global conversation. Researchers worldwide were grappling with the invisible forces of nature, seeking grand unified theories that could explain everything from telepathy to electrical phenomena. The very architecture of the Masonic Temple, a towering symbol of human endeavor, seemed to embody the era's belief in upward progress and enlightened discovery. It was an environment where ambitious minds felt empowered to reach for profound truths, to map the unseen, and to publish findings that could redefine humanity's place in the cosmic order. This forgotten chapter, centered in the bustling, ambitious Chicago of the late 19th century, reveals an intellectual audacity largely lost to time. It sets the stage for a story of groundbreaking ideas, daring assertions about human consciousness, and a systematic erasure from history that begs investigation. How could such a prominent figure and institution simply vanish? In the Gilded Age of scientific inquiry, Professor L. H. Anderson emerged from the intellectual ferment of the Chicago Masonic Temple. His work was not merely academic. It was a radical reinterpretation of human consciousness and information flow, a challenge to the very foundations of accepted knowledge. Within this monumental edifice, Anderson unveiled a concept that would prove both brilliant and dangerously subversive, forever altering our understanding of truth's fragile journey. Anderson's foundational contribution, published in 1895, was a precise geometric construct, a wheel diagram. This wasn't merely an abstract model. It was a visual blueprint for the transmission of thought, radiating outward from what he termed the grand electrical focus. This central hub, Anderson theorized, was the pure, unadulterated source of inspiration and truth, a cosmic wellspring of knowledge awaiting reception by human minds. The diagram's elegance lay in its stark simplicity. Minds positioned closer to this central hub, Anderson posited, experienced pure, elevated, and uncorrupted inspiration, receiving the signal directly. They were the primary receivers, untainted by the filters of subsequent interpretations. This proximity to the source was, in Anderson's view, key to retaining the integrity of the original thought, whether spiritual or historical. However, the wheel's most profound and unsettling implication was revealed as thoughts traveled along its radiating spokes. Anderson mathematically demonstrated that with each successive intermediary human mind, the original signal was inevitably modified. It was diluted, corrupted, and subtly reshaped, a natural process of degradation that he believed affected all forms of transmitted information. This wasn't mere speculation. Anderson applied his mathematical model directly to the most revered forms of human knowledge, historical texts and religious scriptures. He posited that sacred information, passing through as few as 12 intermediate links, would arrive at the 13th mind in a significantly altered and distorted state. This was a radical challenge to the perceived infallibility of ancient wisdom. Anderson dubbed this fundamental principle the Law of Intermediary Contamination. It explained how ancient historical truths, over centuries, were either intentionally or unintentionally altered by institutional gatekeepers. This wasn't necessarily malice. It was an inherent flaw in human transmission, a natural entropy that diluted pristine information as it moved further from its origin. The geometric framework of the wheel provided a chilling visual. It demonstrated how human populations situated on the outer rim of this informational wheel, far removed from the grand electrical focus, received not pure truth, but increasingly polluted streams of reality. Their understanding of history, spirituality, and even themselves was a distorted echo of the original signal. Anderson's work suggested a profound vulnerability in human collective consciousness. If all transmitted knowledge was subject to this degradation, then how could humanity ever truly grasp its own history or the fundamental truths of existence? His diagram wasn't just a scientific model. It was a philosophical statement, hinting at a pervasive and inescapable informational entropy. The implications were seismic. If sacred texts were compromised, if historical records were systematically diluted, then the very foundations of religious authority and academic consensus were built on shifting sands. Anderson's wheel diagram threatened to unravel centuries of established narratives, prompting a reevaluation of every received truth. This wasn't merely a critique. It was a practical guide. For those seeking genuine truth, Anderson's model implicitly advocated for seeking sources closer to the origin, for discerning the earliest, least contaminated records. It was a call to intellectual vigilance, a warning against accepting information blindly, particularly when it had passed through many hands. The subversive power of the wheel diagram was clear. It equipped individuals with a tool to deconstruct narratives and identify potential points of contamination. In an age increasingly reliant on transmitted information, Anderson offered a geometric lens through which to scrutinize the fidelity of every story, every dogma, every accepted historical account. Anderson's ideas challenged not just religious institutions, but the nascent structures of academic history itself. As universities began to standardize their methodologies, claiming objective truth, Anderson's model suggested that their very processes of research and dissemination were inherently vulnerable to the law of intermediary contamination. His work, originating from the highest point in Chicago, seemed to offer a high-altitude perspective on the human condition, a panoramic view of how easily fundamental truths could be lost in the labyrinth of human interpretation. It was a sobering vision of informational decay, yet one that also empowered the discerning mind. The implications extended beyond mere historical accuracy. They touched upon the very nature of human belief and societal control. If truth could be systematically diluted, then the manipulation of populations through carefully curated information became a chillingly simple prospect. The wheel was a map not only of truth's degradation, but of power's insidious mechanics. This geometric demonstration of systemic information pollution was arguably Anderson's most dangerous contribution. It exposed a fundamental vulnerability within all human systems, a vulnerability that, if widely understood, could undermine the authority of institutions across the globe. The wheel diagram was an intellectual grenade thrown into the complacent world of accepted truth. In the burgeoning scientific landscape of the late 19th century, Professor Anderson presented a revolutionary view of human consciousness. He posited that the human brain was not merely a chemical factory, but a sophisticated atmospheric electrical battery. This perspective was deeply rooted in the prevailing ether physics of the era, suggesting a direct energetic connection between individuals and a cosmic wellspring of information. His work hinted at a profound, unseen world of mental resonance. Anderson's model diverged sharply from the nascent chemical understanding of the mind that would soon dominate. He envisioned an intricate system where the human nervous system acted as a receiver and transmitter, capable of drawing nerve force directly from the omnipresent atmospheric electrical fields. This wasn't abstract philosophy. Anderson meticulously documented specific physiological techniques, offering practical methods for individuals to harness this energetic potential. These physiological techniques were designed to achieve mental mastery and self-control. Anderson believed that by consciously closing the body's electromagnetic circuit, individuals could not only amplify their inherent energetic capacities, but also shield themselves from external mental manipulation and hypnotic suggestion. It was a radical call for self-empowerment, offering tools to navigate a world increasingly influenced by unseen forces and external pressures. The implications of this etheric electrical model were vast, promising a future of self-directed healing and heightened human potential. Imagine a world where mental well-being wasn't reliant on external intervention, but on an individual's innate ability to tap into and regulate their own vital energy. Anderson's teachings provided a blueprint for a decentralized approach to health, emphasizing personal agency in an era before pharmaceutical dominance. Yet this empowering paradigm was on a collision course with a new wave of scientific orthodoxy. As the 20th century dawned, a fundamental shift began. Corporate philanthropic foundations, driven by evolving scientific theories and economic interests, initiated a standardization of academic curricula. This restructuring would systematically marginalize and ultimately erase disciplines that didn't align with the emerging materialistic view of consciousness. Between 1904 and 1910, the very foundation of American scientific institutions was dramatically reshaped. Ether-based physics, once a cornerstone of scientific inquiry, was reclassified. Electromagnetic mind science, once a promising field, was now branded as pseudoscientific. This wasn't a gradual evolution of thought. It was a decisive ideological purge, systematically removing alternative models of consciousness from the mainstream discourse. The National Institute of Science, Anderson's pioneering center within the Masonic Temple, was dismantled. His mail-order courses, once widely distributed, and his foundational textbooks, meticulously researched and published, began to vanish from university libraries. It was an orchestrated suppression, a deliberate act of archival erasure that effectively rendered his entire body of work invisible to future generations of scholars and the public alike. This shift marked a profound reorientation of societal understanding regarding health and well-being. The emphasis moved from decentralized, self-mastery through etheric electrical principles to a centralized reliance on pharmaceutical solutions and a burgeoning psychological establishment. The individual's innate capacity for energetic self-regulation was replaced by an externalized model of intervention and dependence. The weight of what was lost during this period is immeasurable. A paradigm that viewed human consciousness as an integral part of a vast cosmic electrical network, capable of drawing vital force from the atmosphere, was systematically sidelined. The self-empowering implications of Anderson's physiological techniques for mental mastery were buried beneath a new, more reductionist scientific narrative. What kind of human potential was deliberately forgotten? Anderson's forgotten work stands as a poignant reminder that scientific progress is not always linear, nor is it free from external influence. The deliberate suppression of his etheric electrical model and the subsequent rise of a purely chemical understanding of the mind begs a critical question. Did humanity truly advance by abandoning this earlier, more expansive view of consciousness, or did we lose something fundamental in the process? The turn of the 20th century marked a pivotal shift, not just in technology, but in the very fabric of scientific inquiry. Anderson's vibrant institute, once a beacon of cutting-edge research within the Masonic Temple, began to falter. The independent spirit of his work, rooted in self-empowerment and etheric understanding, found itself increasingly out of step with a rapidly consolidating scientific establishment. The forces at play were far more powerful than individual research. Between 1904 and 1910, a profound restructuring swept through American scientific institutions. Fields like ether-based physics and electromagnetic mind science, once considered legitimate areas of study, were suddenly reclassified. The very foundation of Anderson's research, the concept of a vital, atmospheric energy interacting with human consciousness, was dismissed outright as pseudoscience, effectively rendering his life's work obsolete in the eyes of the new order. This wasn't a natural evolution of scientific thought. It was a deliberate, coordinated effort. Powerful corporate philanthropic foundations emerged, wielding immense influence over burgeoning universities. Their financial backing came with strings attached, effectively standardizing curricula and ensuring that only approved methodologies and theories made it into the academic mainstream. Anything deviating from this new orthodoxy, like Anderson's work, was systematically purged. Anderson's National Institute of Science, once a vibrant center for exploration, was systematically dismantled. Its groundbreaking research, once published and widely distributed, began to disappear. Textbooks and mail-order courses that had empowered individuals with knowledge of their nerve force and atmospheric battery were quietly removed from public university libraries, becoming increasingly difficult to access or even locate. A carefully orchestrated vanishing act. This suppression wasn't just about discrediting a theory. It was about redirecting societal understanding of health and well-being. The emphasis shifted dramatically from decentralized, etheric health self-mastery, the idea that individuals could tap into cosmic energy, to a model of centralized pharmaceutical and psychological dependence. The power dynamic changed, moving from personal agency to institutional control over mind and body. The consequences of this shift were profound, shaping the trajectory of Western medicine and psychology for decades. Concepts of personal energy, subtle influences, and the atmospheric connection to consciousness were relegated to the fringe, replaced by a purely materialistic view. The human being was no longer an electrical receiver, but a chemical machine, easily manipulated and managed by external forces. Anderson's work, including his geometric wheel, which mapped the degradation of information, became a casualty of this ideological battle. The very tool designed to expose historical distortions was itself distorted and erased from the official record. It's an ironic testament to the effectiveness of the law of intermediary contamination, applied not to ancient texts, but to modern scientific history itself. This erasure created a void, a missing chapter in the history of science and human understanding. Generations grew up without access to these alternative perspectives, never knowing that a different paradigm once existed, one that connected consciousness to a cosmic, electrical field. The narrative of scientific progress became tightly controlled, leaving little room for dissenting or unconventional theories. The official record, meticulously curated, portrayed the early 20th century as a period of rapid advancement, neatly excising any anomalies that didn't fit the approved narrative. Anderson's contributions, once proudly published from the world's tallest building, were systematically reclassified from pioneering research to forgotten footnote, then to complete non-existence in mainstream academic discourse. The human brain, once envisioned as an atmospheric electrical battery, became a purely biochemical organ. This shift not only altered scientific understanding, but also profoundly influenced how society approached mental health, education, and even spirituality. The idea of direct, unmediated access to a grand electrical focus was replaced by a reliance on external expertise and interventions. The silence surrounding L.H. Anderson and his National Institute of Science speaks volumes. It's a silence meticulously constructed, a void in the archives that points not to a lack of work, but to a deliberate act of historical engineering. The architects of this amnesia understood the power of controlling information, especially information that empowers individuals to question established narratives. This orchestrated disappearance serves as a stark reminder. History isn't just discovered, it's often constructed. And sometimes, what is left out is as important as what is included. Anderson's erased legacy forces us to re-examine the foundations of our scientific understanding and to question who benefits from the stories we are told and which ones are buried. The echoes of Professor L.H. Anderson's audacious claims resonated far beyond Chicago. Rare physical copies of his 1895 first edition, bearing the authentic publication stamp of the Masonic Temple, serve as undeniable proof of the institutional backing his early work received. These artifacts, meticulously preserved, are not merely old books. They are tangible evidence of a scientific paradigm that once flourished at the apex of American innovation, a testament to a truth almost lost. Further archival digging reveals the widespread impact of Anderson's thought. Copyright registration records from the 1890s paint a clear picture of his prolific output. Titles like How to Win and Ancient Magic were not obscure pamphlets but widely distributed textbooks, reaching audiences across North America and Europe. This extensive reach directly contradicts the narrative of an isolated, fringe scientist, highlighting a deliberate and systematic effort to erase his influence. The very architecture of the 1892 Masonic Temple reveals its purpose. Archival land surveys and intricate architectural blueprints explicitly document specialized laboratory spaces within its walls. These weren't mere offices. They were dedicated facilities for psychotherapeutic experiments, designed to explore the very nature of consciousness. This evidence solidifies the image of a serious scientific endeavor, not a mere philosophical musing, within the grandest structure of its time. Beyond the physical archives, digitized microfilms from forgotten occult and spiritualist periodicals offer another window into Anderson's world. Within their brittle pages, we find catalog listings for his missing multi-volume correspondence courses. These weren't just books. They were comprehensive educational programs, suggesting a dedicated academic structure that operated outside the burgeoning, standardized university system, an alternative curriculum for a different kind of science. Perhaps the most striking evidence of suppression is the deafening silence in mainstream academia. The complete absence of L.H. Anderson from standard 20th century American literary and psychological encyclopedias is not an oversight. It is a calculated void. This deliberate archival erasure speaks volumes, highlighting a concerted effort to scrub his name and his revolutionary ideas from the official historical record, leaving a gaping hole for future generations. Today, access to Anderson's seminal works is a privilege, not a given. Physical copies of his writings remain preserved only in specialized underground collectors' vaults and rare manuscript archives. These sanctuaries for forbidden knowledge safeguard the remnants of a powerful alternative scientific narrative, offering a glimpse into a time when human consciousness was seen not as a chemical soup, but as an electrical beacon in an etheric sea. Contemporary researchers, delving into 19th century etheric physics, find startling resonance with Anderson's model. His wheel diagram, once dismissed, mirrors modern information theory and signal degradation laws with unnerving precision. This lost map, meticulously preserved, now offers a potent tool for navigating the polluted streams of information in our own time, proving that the truths he uncovered are not merely historical curiosities, but timeless insights into the human condition.